Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money.
MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs.
And by Cycle Mart, your motorcycle parts store. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
What's going on, buddy boy?
Well, I got the idle circuit cleaned out on my Trail 90. My hands still smell like carburetor cleaner, and wolfed some dinner down and hopped on the podcast with about 2 minutes to spare. So, fun stuff.
Nothing like a little 87 to 93 octane to go down with your pork chops, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Can't beat
that. They say there's a pork chop in every can, so this is probably a good 1.5 since it's a tall can.
All right. Well, we got a really awesome episode lined up for tonight. We're going to sit down with our buddy Mark from US Dual Sports. Mark's site is something very interesting, and it should be a tool, I feel, in any guy's arsenal that wants to get into the sport, because he's got so much stuff on there to help you find events, and not only find events, but just kind of help with everything when it comes to dual sport in general. So without further ado, let's bring him on. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. How about you? How about you guys?
Oh, just living the dream one nightmare at a time.
One nightmare at a time.
There you go.
Hey, man, we really appreciate you coming on here tonight. I'm excited to sit down with you here and go through some stuff, because like I was saying earlier, that your site is definitely one of a kind. I can't think of anything else out there that encompasses all the information that somebody might be looking to try to figure out for events around not just our area, but the entire United States, man. It's something that's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a ongoing work for many years now. And I started building it when I first got into the sport and knew nothing about the sport, knew nothing about dual sporting or anything. And that's kind of how I've tried to build it, is for that new guy coming into the sport. Where do I start? How do I get involved?
Yeah, we love accessible resources for new riders. I mean, that's one of the biggest ways to grow the hobby.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you can get new guys into it and join it and add events, it's better for everybody.
Yep, for sure, man.
Yep.
Well, we'll kind of just go around your general background before we get into the meat and potatoes of the website and everything here. So, where were you born and raised at, man?
I was born in Plainfield, Indiana. It's where I currently live still. I was in the military in San Diego. And then for a couple of years, we moved out to LA. My wife's job took us out there, but I keep coming back to Plainfield, Indiana. It's just west of Indy, about 15 minutes.
Okay. That's cool.
Yep.
What's your day job? What do you do for your career?
So my day job now is I have a power washing company that I do that during the summer months. So I just shut it down about Thanksgiving, and then I won't start back up until about March. So my main pay the bills job is power washing.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm sure you get to see a lot of cool places and get to do a lot of cool stuff with that.
Yeah, it's different. It's like any job. It was fun at first, and then it became, you're doing the same thing over and over again, but it pays the bills.
It's got to say something to be your own boss, though, too, right?
Yeah, at this point in time, I'm unemployable, I say. I've been doing that for 7 years. I was a stay-at-home dad for 5 years prior to that. So
nice.
going to the workplace and somebody telling me what to do again, it might be difficult.
Yeah, I get that 100%.
Yeah.
What are some of your other hobbies besides obviously dual sports and motorcycles in general?
So as a family, we're big into camping. So
Nice.
we set a goal out when our kids were young to try to get our kids in all 50 states before they graduated high school.
That's cool.
My oldest just graduated. He went to college this year. He made it to 48 states, and we weren't able to make Alaska and Hawaii because of COVID and all that. Just put a dampener right on that whole thing. So we still have 2 more left, but that's our big hobby. Whenever we're not working, we are traveling around camping.
That's a really cool goal, though. I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody with a setting out on something like that to camp all 50 states.
Yeah, and when I say camp, I mean glamping, but
like RV type.
Yeah. My wife was not going to do tent camping, and now that we do it this way, I would. And when you're traveling, 2 and 3 weeks at a time, it's nice to have a camper.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's about the only way to do it anymore, really. Yeah. Mark, how did you get your start into riding?
So I got into riding. So I think I've been married 3 or 4 or 5 years around there. And I didn't really have a hobby. And I was working at a steel mills, working a bunch of hours. And my father-in-law has rode since he was a kid. And my wife actually rode a little bit up until about high school time. And so he kept on me, wanting me to go riding. And I was 28 years old the first time I ever got on 2 wheels. And he took me to a place called Stony Lonesome, and anybody from Indiana will know what that place is. It's rocky, hilly, not a place that you should go. It's a great place to take your son-in-law for the first time. not a good place to go riding. And, he's basically, I've driven a manual car, so I had an idea of what a clutch was and all that. I got about 15 minutes in the parking lot, and we were out on the trails. And the first time I went, I threw the bike over my head because it was a KDX 220, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I threw that bike over my head twice, just, whiskey throttle on it. And I told my wife and I got home, I said, this is not the sport for me. And then he got a KLR 650. It was a 4-stroke, a little tamer. And I putted around on that on the roads and around the house here. I was like, maybe I'll try that again. So then I went out and bought, in 2008, I bought a CRF 230L, the dual sport, and rode it back and forth to work. I put 5,500 miles on it the first year. And that was kind of what got me into it. Once I got that, and I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the 4 strokes. I like 2 strokes, but I've never been a fan of them. I didn't grow up riding. So a 4-stroke is tamer and easier on me. So
that's really cool, man. Yeah. But we talked about this in a earlier episode back, that it's never too late to get into this sport. Obviously guys like you, starting at 28, my mom started when she was 28 years old. She got tired of seeing the rest of the family ride around having a good time. So she decided to join in. And even Trevor, I know you got a late start in it as well. So
yeah, I got into it like 2019, somewhere in there. So once you're out of the house and on your own health insurance, sky's the limit.
And for me, that's how I got into dual sports, because I was working the steel mills and I was holding the insurance for our family at that time. And I went to the HR department and said, hey, can I do these events? And they're like, well, as long as it's not for place or for speed or placement, then it's just like a poke around the woods. So you can do it, So that's why I kind of got into dual sports, because I was worried about getting hurt,
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things about dual sporting is it's more oriented towards individual rider pace. Yeah. You kind of pick your way through things. If you don't fall into the back of the pack, it really doesn't matter. It's just nice to have a non-competitive hobby.
Well, not just that. And if you want to race, everybody's racing.
Oh yeah.
But the best part is you can stop, help somebody, stop, bunch back up.
Yep.
And it's not like you're going to lose spots, because it's not for place. So if everybody gets spread out and the front guy stops and then everybody so then you're back to the fun racing of right on a wheel of somebody.
Yeah, that it also encompasses, I think, the guys like me that are the semi-retired racers.
Right.
where just like you start having all these responsibilities and you're worried about your health insurance and that type of thing and that's how it was for me. I'm out there racing for a $5 wooden plaque, and I'm racing against 17 and 16-year-old kids that don't have any responsibilities. Like, they don't have to get up and go to midnight shift to work tonight, so, but it still is fun to get out, just ride with your buddies. And I do occasionally scratch that trail speed fast itch once in a while when we're out riding together. So
yeah, most of the guys in our group are ex-hare scramble racers, and they always, for many years, said, no, we're not going to do it. We want to race, and then after the first dual sport, they never raced again.
Yep.
Because they got a lot more trail riding in. They didn't go the same loop.
Yeah.
And they had a blast. And, when you get up there a little bit older, you can take a break.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter,
I can totally attest to that, because I kept putting my dad off. He kept wanting me to come out and go ride with him and his buddies. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a good time. Like, I don't want to go do that. And they finally convinced me to go, and I've been hooked ever since. So
yeah. I mean, I think that situation, depending on which dual sport you do, but most guys are kind of in that same scenario where once they do one, they realize, okay, it's not too bad.
Yeah. That's awesome. So first bike you rode was a KDX 220. What's your current bike or your current fleet look like?
Current bike is a KTM 350.
Nice. I have the 350 XCF, a 21 model.
Yep. I have the XCW.
Yep.
And yeah, that's the only dirt bike I currently have right now, because basically with 3 kids, my riding time is limited. So I always flirt on getting an adventure bike so I can go ride with the guys that have kind of gotten out of the dual sport riding.
Right.
But then having a bike in the garage drives me crazy when I don't go ride it.
Yeah.
So it's better off sometimes just to not have it here, so you're not tempted to go ride it,
Yeah. Got any mods, just kind of the usual stuff for longer dual sport rides, or is it kind of fairly soft?
It's got the recluse clutch in it, flex bars, the bells, and I like the blingy stuff. It's got some of that on it. Yep. But no, that's about it. I mean, your everyday normal modifications.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings us over to what we really want to talk about, and that's the website, the usdualsports.com. So take us through what your thought process was as far as kind of putting that together, and what role you wanted it to fill in the dual sport industry.
Well, this answer is probably going to surprise you. So in the military, I was a diesel mechanic and a search and rescue swimmer. So I know nothing about websites. In 2008, I think it was, we went up and did the Wabino dual sport up in Wisconsin. That was the first dual sport I've ever been to. Had that bike that I told you about for probably 6 months at the time. Went up there, did it, had a blast. We were hooked on the dual sports. And we started trying to find information, and we couldn't find any information. And all the guys that I ride with are about 15, 20 years older than me. So at that time, the internet they weren't getting on it. And they still don't do a lot of it. So I built US Dual Sports literally for the 10 guys that we ride with. So I went around and gathered all this information around Ohio, Indiana, trying to find rides, because I started off on Blogspot. So it was like a blogger almost. Mm-hmm. And I put all the information on there and just kept adding to it. And then one year we went over, and I can't remember if it was the Flint Ridge Dual Sport or the Baby Bird Dual Sport. And somebody came up to me and told me that I should go look at this website called US Dual Sports. And it was one of those, like, I had no clue that it was even out on the web, because I didn't know what I was doing. And then from there, we went to the Flint Ridge the next year, and John DeVito, which I think you guys know John, really nice guy, like 300 guys showed up, and he was used to, I think, getting like 100 or so. And it was the right weather. I mean, a lot of it was the right situations. And he kept saying, well, everybody keeps saying this US Dual Sports, and I'm going, oh, man, I don't I still at this point, I kind of know a little bit more about it, but I don't know how I know how they're finding it by Google searching it, but that many people. And so then after that, I kind of took it to all of the United States. So it was one of those that kind of started off Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, West Virginia, areas around here. And then it blew up to that. And I bought the URL in 2012, kind of as not a joke, but just it was $1.99. And so I bought it and I found US Dual Sports and then just kind of grew it from there, basically.
Nice.
So, and my favorite part of that story is the 10 guys I built it for, they still don't use the website. They still
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Trevor?
I was just saying that's really interesting. I wouldn't have expected that to be such a grassroots, upbringing for the site.
Yeah, because it was one of those, like I said, I was working at steel mills, so I'd have 4 days on, 4 days off, so I could research. And I was the younger guy of the group, so I would go on Thumper Talk and KTM Talk and find some information, and it was so hard to find it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was a stay-at-home dad, so I had a lot more time on my hands. And that's when the site really took off. I was a stay-at-home dad for 5 years, so I had, when the kids were napping, kids were at school, this and that, I could just gather all the information. That's kind of, if you saw the old website versus the website now, it was nowhere near the information was there, but it wasn't as easy to read and find, and it didn't look as pretty either.
Yeah, it is crazy to see how far it's come now because, like you said, a lot of these places, we've even talked about this with Heather Wilson, that a lot of these old school clubs putting their events out just really don't understand the marketing aspect of putting it out there and getting their guys there. It was like, hey, we put a flyer up at a local dealership, and there's one post on Adventure Rider about our ride. Like that's all the information you need. So I think it's awesome that you just say you click on one of your rides on the website, it breaks it down, shows you time, dates, location, it shows entry fee, it shows if there's a flyer available for the ride. I know a lot of times you put that on there as well, and what all is required of you. And it's just such a great tool for people that maybe have never been to that event to see what they need to bring with them, and they got a little bit of a better idea going into what they're getting into. Yeah,
and that was kind of when I started getting into the more of building what US Dual Sports is now.
Yeah,
that is exactly because most of the club members, I don't want to say they don't use my site, but a lot of them don't because they know what events they're already going to ride this year. They talk to each other. They don't understand the concept of it too much. I would say the newer guys are starting to learn it, but that's definitely what it is like all the information you can get and give the clubs a place to post all that information so they don't have to, if they don't want to do their own website, they really don't have to.
Yeah. I know, thinking back on it, I think me and you kind of got together on the second year of the 304 Detour ride. And I cannot remember who introduced me to your site, but I remember going on there and just seeing all that and like, man, this is such an awesome resource that we need to utilize as FDSR. And I know we were able to get with you, get all our information on there, and it definitely helped us as well. We've gotten a lot of people that said they saw it on your site and come ride with us. So we really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. And that's always the best one, like to hear that it's working, because you can look at the numbers and people are coming to visit and look at the site, but you don't ever hear back, how many people actually came to it because of that,
Right.
Like a couple of years, Renfro Valley and Flint Ridge actually asked people just to see, because I built a good rapport with them, and I was at those events, and they kind of asked guys just because I was interested, like how many guys are in it, and most guys at least had heard of it,
Well, like I said, I realize how much of an impact you have on just kind of the event schedule and everybody in these clubs all over the United States that do this. But one thing that I really took away and was really profound was, two things actually. When we went to the Flint Ridge ride, unfortunately, the last year they had it, John DeVito was accommodating enough to let us go up in front of everybody at the riders meeting and introduce our ride, which was awesome. But not only that, they brought you up on stage there to kind of show a face to what you do. And I mean, everybody there was giving you a big ovation. So, I mean, you should definitely feel proud that what you're doing makes a difference and it matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And John's always a good guy. I can't say enough. I mean, the Ohio dual sport community wouldn't be the same without that guy. He's been involved in every dual sport, enduro, hare scramble in Ohio, I think. Like he's a true believer in rising tides raises all ships. Like that. I'm amazed at, because one year at his sign up, he literally sat there and when you're handing in your money, he was asking everybody, have you ever heard of US Dual Sports? And if not, he handed him one of my business cards.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, I mean, for him to do that is, that's a good guy.
Yeah. What are some of the services that you offer in addition to just posting up the event on the website? I know you also you helped us out the second year that we did it until we kind of got our feet on the ground running with you do pre-registration for events as well, right? You help with that.
Yeah, like if an event wants to handle the money side of it, I don't ever want to handle the event like your guys' money. I don't.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, because when the summertime hits, my real job kicks in, and if we have an issue on my website, I don't want to have to be babysitting it and taken away from my real job. So I do a pre-registration just so that guys can kind of get an idea. And it basically, what it does is when they fill out the information on the website, it sends a copy to you guys and to me.
Yeah.
That way you kind of have an idea of who's going to show up. And then if you want to, if they want to invoice them after that, they can.
Yeah.
But as far as other services, I don't do a lot. I'll do some Facebook boosting of posts and things like that. And I just kind of do that on my own because I know which rides are big and which rides are going to get the views and which pages, things like that.
Yeah.
But I really don't. I try to make it as simple as you come here, you find the information, and then I hand you over to the club. Like that's kind of been my goal is you come here, you find the date. Oh, I like this one. Date matches up. The event matches up. Now you go find the 3 or 4 guys, go talk to them, go email them, because they know a lot more about the event than I would.
Yeah. That's awesome, buddy. What are some events that really stuck out to you as ones you really, really enjoyed either promoting or going and doing yourself?
The staple ones for us, we do the Broxton Bridge about every year. And for us, that's a 16-hour drive. Or about 15-hour drive. We do that one every year that the weather's nice. If it's going to rain, we're just not going to make that drive down there. Renfro Valley is always one that we do. Baby Burr, the Buffalo, which is only about an hour and a half from us, which is here in Indiana, and Matthews or Mud Daubers in Indiana. We do that one. And then we try to add one random one around like the Copperhead or Flint Ridge. We usually can't make them all because they all kind of bunch up right there in that summertime.
Yeah.
But Renfro and Broxton Bridge are just because of the time of year. Broxton Bridge, we're all cooped up here in Indiana, ready to go and ride. So we go and do that one. It's a guy's weekend. It's the perfect Martin Luther King weekend. Most guys have Monday off. And then Renfro Valley, just because before Broxton Bridge, it used to be kind of the first one of the season.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome, bud. Let's talk about some other stuff that you have on the site just besides the events. I know you've recently kind of added 2 other things right now, and the first I want to talk about is the GPX routes tab that you've added to the site. So tell us about that process and what you feel about it so far.
So the GPX page. So the reason for adding that is I see a lot of guys who don't want to do events. Maybe they don't have the weekend to do it. They just want to go ride for the weekend. So the GPX, all those GPX that you see on there have been sent to me by other riders. I send them there. The guys that want to share it, there's a lot of guys out there that love to go to just lay out trail or gravel roads and then share that with everybody. And those are where most of those came from. A couple of them are from guys that I ride with. And my biggest thing on that was just trying to get guys out riding. More of the adventure crowd is doing that.
Yeah.
All of it should be on gravel roads, not behind gates, pretty easy riding.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is just to get guys out riding.
Yeah. And then the last one that's recent on there is the meetups tab. So talk us through that and what you envision with that there.
So that tab, I was building it basically this week and last week. my goal with that is on all these Facebook groups, you always see a guy, hey, I got a KLR 650. I want to go riding. Who's in the area? Hey, I got a, DRZ 400. I'd love to go ride it more, or I just retired. My hope with that is that guys will get on there. And if you want to put your information on the website, guys can contact you. Right now I'm just doing it where they can email you, because I don't want to get too much personal information out on the web. So
Right.
I'm making it to where it's the email address is hidden, so they click a button and they can email you. And eventually it'll have a contact page where you can actually contact that rider. And my goal with that is new guys getting into it, or guys that are maybe Harley riders that are jumping on KLRs or rode dirt bikes as a kid and getting back into the sport, can kind of find a group of riders to ride with. Because it's amazing how many guys skip the dirt bike or traditional dirt bike and dual sport riding. They go straight to adventure.
Yeah.
But they don't have anybody to ride with, because their Harley buddies aren't ready to go do the gravel roads. So.
Yeah, that's really something fantastic, I feel, because, a lot of times if you do have certain riding clubs, they don't like to add the new guys into it because they don't want to take the time to show them the skills they need, or, they just don't want to deal with the headache. And I know, fortunately, in our group, we have a lot of guys that are super accommodating, and one that jumps off the top of my head, which won our ambassador award at our little Christmas shindig there last weekend, was Tom King. And it definitely takes guys like that, I feel, to push the sport forward, to get more people involved. And if you have something like that where there's a resource where you can see who's close to you, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and my other hope is that guys will, because you can also add the event. Like if you're going to go and just say you're going to go do 100 miles this weekend, like my goal is to have it to where guys can post it out there. And you never know, like a lot of these dual sports that we do and adventure rides, they started that way. Guys were meeting up, and the next thing you know, I think like the Red River Scrambles, for one, I think that's pretty much how it started. Was guys were out riding, they were out looking like, hey, we've got all this information here, we might as well put an event on, have fun. So, because the traditional dual sports and adventure rides, they're growing, and we're losing some here and there. So my hope is just give guys, opportunity to ride. Yeah.
We've talked about this before, but do you feel like maybe there is a slight decline where maybe we're not getting the younger guys into the sport or into the clubs that want to take it upon themselves to keep the events going, keep the club going, that you're starting to see some of these events age out and people not stepping up to take place of that?
I see that. Yeah, I definitely see that. I think the biggest thing that clubs struggle with is the voluntary part of it, which is hard. I mean, everybody has multiple hobbies now. It's the days of just riding dirt bikes, I think, are over. Everybody's camping or dirt biking or jeeping, so your weekends go away real quick. Yep. And like I've never been involved in a club because, to do 10 hours, 15 hours, when do I ride? Where for me, it's one of those, I'd rather do the website during, make your contribution with the website and then go ride on the weekends, because it's just so hard when you dedicate that much time to one event.
We've kind of experienced with the 3 or 4 detour. It's improving as it's getting more fleshed out, and it kind of follows the same formula every year. But It feels like the weather breaks, and then almost every weekend is dedicated towards routing or planning or something like that, pre-routing, and it does. That's not to say it's not really rewarding, but it definitely does become time consuming.
Yeah. And that's what everybody, and then I agree. It's good to do it on a voluntary basis and donate to local things. But yeah, when it's getting harder to convince people when there's no monetary benefits to doing an event, to go out and just give up your time away from family. And usually you have more time when you retire, but then, a lot of guys get out of the sport when they retire too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, the younger crowd, I don't know. I see you're starting to see some younger crowd into it. I think that the biggest thing is, I think the video games and the other things have kind of taken away from, like, I could never get my kids into riding. I'm sitting here right next to me is 250s, and they rode those, and I really, they didn't have the urge to get any bigger bike. So
I think the youngest member of our immediate club is Arthur, right? 22 years old.
Yeah, either him or Joey, I would say.
So, or Joey. A big part of it is the cost barrier for entry, not just buying the machine, but buying the gear.
Yeah.
When I got into it, I bought a $1,500 Yamaha, and then my gear totaled out to like $800 because I wanted to get, reasonable stuff that was going to protect me. But yeah, it's a big cost barrier for entry when you're, 20 years old or so and looking at stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think that's where the meetup aspect kind of comes into play, because I don't want to say adventure bikes are more cost, as far as or not, they're less cost. You can find a good used one is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And you can get into it, and you can go do a gravel road adventure ride in your jeans if you wanted to. And you don't have to have all the $600 jacket, the $500 pants to go do an adventure, and a good set of work boots to get you through the day. Where like a dual sport, man, you've got $1,200-$1,500 just in safety gear before you even start the ride, not including the bike. So,
yeah. Mark, what are some challenges of running a site like US Dual Sports? What are some of the issues you see pop up, and some of the difficulties in putting that together?
The biggest challenge I probably run into is I have zero website and coding experience. So everything I've learned has been from watching YouTube videos, getting on forums, reading articles, all that kind of stuff. So like right now, if you go to the website, we were just talking earlier, all the pages are down. I don't know why. I know why, but it's one of those I go back and try to figure out. And that's the biggest challenge, because somebody that knows websites can just go look at the error log and know exactly what's wrong with it. I can't do that. I've got to go back, start over from the last saved one that works, and then rebuild it again until it works all perfectly. So that's the biggest challenge, is just it's time consuming, but it keeps me busy too.
Yeah.
And the other one is probably people not realizing that I don't put on all these events. Like people get into it and they think that I put on all these events, and that US Dual Sports is this big AMA type website, which,
right.
It is a big website. It gets a lot of traffic, but it's literally just me. Yeah. So, and that's the other thing is guys won't contact me if there's an issue, because they think, that big company knows, they've got people working on it. Well, if I don't see it, then nobody knows, because it's just me. So
yeah,
that's the other struggle, is it is just me. So,
well, your website looking as professional as it does, I was somewhat surprised to learn it was just one guy behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always, I talk to my wife all the time. Like, do I make it, not as, because I like it to look professional. I want everything I do, I like to make it professional looking, make it look the best I can. But then it kind of loses that, grassroots type one guy running it, where it just looks like a PDF form or something.
That's a hard balance to strike.
Yeah, it is. And that, for me, that's part of the fun, is trying to make it more professional, because like I said, I have zero experience. So it's one of those, like, it's a challenge.
Yep.
What are some successes of US Dual Sports that you're proud of to be able to share with everybody so far?
The biggest one, I still to this day get a kick out of somebody coming up to me and suggesting the website to me. Like, because minus this interview right here, really not too many people, unless you go to the Ohio, and you only, even if they pull me up front, Renfrew Valley will do the same thing, kind of what John did. You see me for 2 seconds, but then you don't. Like, I'm just another face at a dual sport, Yeah. And it's always funny when you're on the trail and you ask the guys, well, what other ones do you do? Oh, well, you need to go to US Dual Sports. He's got them all listed there. And I'm like, oh yeah, just kind of laughing, and we run helmet communications on our thing, so the guys can always hear it, and that's always the fun, like, just interesting thing, because a lot of guys use it. And then the other one, just this past year, we were camping in Renfrew Valley, Kentucky, or Renfrew Valley. They do an adventure ride also in October. And we were heading down for fall break in South Carolina. And I always stop in at the Renfrew Valley, used to be the KOA, because they allowed them to do the dual sport there. So anytime we travel through there, I try, if it works out, I stop at that area just to support that campground because they support us. And they were doing the adventure ride and all the guys were there. And I was talking to guys and my kids were like, how do they know who you are? You know, like how, like, you know, because they have no clue about, they know the website, but they just don't realize the draw it has, you know. And my kids were like, that's so weird. You know, to me, that's the funny ones is when people don't realize who you are and they mention it, you know.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. What are some future plans you got maybe for events or rides or just the site in general? What do you got coming down the pipe in the future?
This winter, the big thing I'm going to work on is the meetup part of it, just because I really think that is a section that could help everybody. All the events, I think, like I said, the more guys we keep interested, and I think it'll bring guys, because the part that I struggle now is all the people that know about the website. So getting the new fresh faces, and as it gets bigger, it's harder to find that person that doesn't know about it. Yeah. So that's where I'm hoping that the meetup will kind of, through Google searches, people will find the website and then realize that there's a whole nother world to the dual sport community, the enduros, the hair, like just realize that there's more to do than just ride gravel roads if that's what they're into.
Yeah. So say somebody has a new event that they're trying to get that information out and get marketed a little bit, and they want to add that to your site. How would somebody go about that? What's the best way for them to do that?
Two things. You can email me, mark@usdualsports.com. And also on the website, there's a button, or there's a little button that says add event, or depending on what page you're on, add event or add to the site. And it's just a form. It's just a simple form. You put the name of the ride, all the information, and then 90% of the time I'm going to call you just so I can make sure that we're on the right. I'm putting in the right section, because what I run into is some people will call their ride a dual sport, but it's set up for GSs. To me, that's an adventure ride. And I try to keep, even though California and east or west of the Mississippi is kind of different than west of the Mississippi as far as the verbiage goes, on my side, I try to keep it east of the Mississippi verbiage. So it's the same. If a guy from Ohio wants to go ride in California, he knows what he's getting into. You know, you don't want to haul a KTM 350 to go do 300 miles of road riding for the day. You know?
We've been down that road, haven't we, Trevor?
Yeah, I got 2 points. I guess we'll not talk about coal fields and whatever gets you to Richwood.
Yeah, because that's always the worst feeling is when you bring the wrong bike. Because most guys have the right bike in the stable, but they just, you bring the wrong bike because it's called a dual sport, but you're doing 300 miles. You know? Yeah,
we got into something quite similar. Spoon new front and rear knobbies on my KTM, was ready for this big enduro, challenge, and it was a rod far better suited for my Kawasaki that's set up for like 50-50 riding, like road gravel, more or less.
Yeah, and that's always, like I said, that you probably still had fun, but you could have had more fun.
Yeah. I had fun at the expense of the next valve check and oil change.
Yeah. When you bring, that's definitely the wrong bike on that situation. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you feel like the sport's in a weird spot when it comes to things like that? Like it's challenging to convey that to the person that may be coming to the event, that like, this your idea of a hard loop or an easy loop or a dual sport or adventure is going to be completely different than somebody else. Like we talked about earlier before the show started, we're seeing a lot more two-stroke guys show up to a dual sport. So
right.
You think that's kind of a something that's changing these days, that the industry is kind of maybe going a little bit more hardcore than it used to be?
I think as the younger guys get into it, I think yes, because the younger guys want that tight, gnarly single track, where the older guys are they want the flowy, easy, single track. And so it depends on the ride. And a lot of guys, yes, they do one dual sport. Like if you do the Upper Cumberland dual sport in Tennessee, it might as well be called a hard enduro.
Yeah.
And they're starting to mellow it out a little bit just because they see that their clientele is wanting kind of something in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think everything comes, it just depends on where you're at or what you see. Like it kind of floats around in the United States as far as the hard ones come. And then like Renfrew Valley, when we first started, it was hard. Like it was, if there was one section, they had 21 creek crossings. And it was the most fun section ever, but it was challenging. And he had to take it out because guys were dumping bikes and drowning out bikes, and then people weren't making it back to camp, so he had to take it out. And it's evolved as the guys have gotten older too that put it on. They don't want to go out there, run across the creek 21 times hanging arrows. So yeah, I think it comes and goes.
Yeah. That's something we've had difficulty with is trying to convey the level of difficulty that a ride's going to be, but B, trying to strike the balance between fun and challenging, but not to the extent that 80% of guys come out so frustrated that they bail out early.
Right. Yeah. And I always, for clubs that are putting on events, I always say, if you can and have the ability, make a video. Guys can watch a video, they can jump on it, they can see what kind of trail it is, what kind of bike they need to bring, if it's too challenging for them, if it's not too challenging enough. And as you know, half-inch rain can change a whole day.
Oh yeah.
So we've been very, very fortunate. Super fortunate in the last 4 years on it. Knock on heads, everything you got laying around here. That what I think the second year we did our ride, it was like right towards the end of the first day. Some of the guys were still out on one really awful hill climb, and the skies opened up and they got kind of stuck out in that. But we've been lucky. We haven't had a whole lot of rain.
Year before last, maybe we had the sky completely opened up. Arthur,
the Easy Loop guys.
Yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah, they had one guy get a flat tire. See, the Easy Loop is a guided ride, so there's a head guy and a tail gunner, and you kind of keep everybody in the middle. And they had one guy get a flat tire, and they didn't really have enough guys to just kind of stay with that guy and help him get his bike back on again. So the whole group had to stop.
Yeah.
And well, they, in the time that it took them to do that, they could have been back to camp. But I remember we were all sitting there at Mark's house, and here comes the Easy Loop guys up the driveway, and it'd been pouring the rain down for like 10 minutes straight. You see the elbows down, you just see the water rolling off everybody. Yeah, they got a bath that day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the hardest part about those guided rides is it's hard. That's a hard way to keep everybody together. Somebody's going to have a mechanical or somebody's going to have an issue.
Yeah.
So,
we've kind of been able to evolve it a little bit to where, we do the hard loop one day and the Easy Loop the next day. And then it's guys from the Easy Loop can help us do our hard loop, and then vice versa. On the Easy Loop, we can come out and help the guided ride kind of go a little bit smoother and stay with those people if they need assistance. And for the most part, it's worked out pretty well.
Do you guys run sweep riders at the end?
Yes.
So on the hard loop, I was a sweep rider. And one thing that, I would kind of suggest, and it just made my anxiety level go down a lot more, was on the hard loop, I was able to have Trevor, AJ, and a couple of other guys in our club, take off like an hour before the ride and ride the whole track and just make sure the arrows that we put up didn't get messed with. We got a lot of drunk side-by-side guys in our area that like to mess with things.
Yeah, so we have, of course, the landowners that swear up and down they own a county road but can't produce a deed.
Right.
But, it was actually a really good idea. And having done it's pretty fun. You're some of the first guys to hit that section of trail before it gets all reamed out and everything throughout the day. Right. But it made things flow so much more smoothly because the year previous we had issues with arrows getting pulled down and even flipped.
Going the other way. So.
And everybody fights it. Renfrew Valley fights it every year. The guys, they do the same thing. They send a group of guys out to make sure the arrows are up. And they've gotten to the point where they almost make it kind of incognito, where you're reading the roll chart, and it sometimes, I believe it was their ride, they had turn arrows, but then they'd have like another indicator about a half a mile down the road saying, yes, you're on the right road, But we've done one where we're coming up out of logging road or non-maintained road. And I might be confusing two rides, but we came up and there was a bunch of side-by-side standing there. Well, they parked their setup to where, and they pointed the arrow to the left where we were supposed to go to the right, and they parked on the right and blocked. We didn't even know there was a road there. So everybody's kind of circling around. And then we came through and I was like, man, I feel like we feel like we go right here because we've done it enough. We know. And then, we're on dirt bikes, so we could just go right around them, and then once we burn in the trail around them, then everybody kind of knew where to go.
Yeah, that's a pastime in this state, is being forced to weave through the procession of parked side by sides. All the 10:30 boys ride for 10 minutes and drink for 30.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate, which it's like we're not even, we're riding in the middle of their ruts, so it's like, we're not hurting you guys, and we're not going to hold you up.
We're all fighting to keep the same trails open.
Exactly. Yeah. Same.
That's what people don't realize.
Well, and the more guys that are out there riding, the more trails that should come open, right? I mean, if it's a touristy type thing, then all we're doing is helping each other out, really.
Yep.
Sweet. Mark, is there anybody you want to thank for everything that you put together with the website and everything?
I mean, like I said, the biggest thing is all the event people, like people that send in their information. Like, it used to be I was fighting nail and tooth to try to find every event, every information. Now it's to the point like what you guys did. I get a text, our event's on this date. Here's the new information, So, I mean, for me, that's huge because as my business grows, my time available on the website doesn't get smaller, but it takes away from it. So the more guys that can send information to me, because like I said, it's just me. So that's the biggest help for me.
Yeah.
And as far as thanking, it'd be the wife and all the family, because they put up with it.
I get that. All right. Well, let's go through some of these comments before we get into the end parts of the show here. Let's see. I'm not sure who this one is, but when we cracked the beers open, somebody said now they were thirsty. So that's always a good thing. Nick Hall, who is our president of FDSR, says, thanks, Mark, for all you do for the sport, and thanks for what you do helping our group and our 3 or 4 detour ride.
No problem.
And got a couple more here. Somebody else says they'll quit when they're no longer able to throw their leg over the seat, which has a good mentality to have.
Yeah. My father-in-law still rides with us, and he's 71 years old, and I still can't catch him.
We have a lot of seasoned riders that I have a lot of difficulty with trying to keep up with, and they give me a lot of hope because I get a lot of enjoyment out of this, and I want to do it as long as I can.
Yeah, it was fantastic at our ride. We gave away some little prizes before at the riders meeting, and one of them was I think it was a Bob Evans gift card for the oldest person that was there. And I can't remember the dude's name that won, but he was like 76 years old and did our hard loop and did all the hero sections and everything. It was fantastic.
I remember that guy. I got to pick his brain a little bit, and he was a really interesting character.
Yeah, my father-in-law's the same way. The only way I can keep up, if he wrecks a couple times, then I can keep up with him because he's worn out from picking the bike up. But if he keeps it on 2 wheels, he can disengage that brain and go.
Last one we got here, it says somebody was commenting the WTF section a few years ago in the rain. Yeah, that would definitely be something really bad. There's one more. I'm pretty sure I fell for one of the flipped arrows. Still great. Yep.
Yeah, even if you take the wrong arrow, as long as you don't run out of gas, you're usually okay with it. It's just more seat time.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, you were off dealing with the flipped arrow situation, and I was dealing with the guy that had gotten a 2-wheel drive Chevrolet panel van stuck on part of the track that he thought the arrows were pointing to like where to drive to get to the ride.
Oh,
so
yeah, one of the worst sections of the entire ride. It's down in this
worst road
bottomless
area, period, in terms of how rough it is. The only saving grace that there was a farmer with a probably 100 horse 4-wheel drive tractor that let us cut the fence to take it out through the field that adjoined that road. Otherwise, it would have been.
Yeah, those stories are always my fear, that I have the starting location wrong or I've got something off. That's why I try to keep it as vague as possible, because there's so many of them because situations like that, guys I'm always afraid I'm going to get an email saying I went here and I got stuck, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not.
That was an interesting one.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, we had him. He actually unloaded his bike and rode out to where we actually were meeting to put the rod on. He said, "I'm stuck." I'm sitting there thinking, "What do you mean you're stuck? You're sitting right here."
Right. You're on a bike.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys will remember that one forever, though.
Yep.
Yeah, we remembered it so well that last year's sticker for the event actually was a white Chevy panel van with the decals and stuff on the side of it. So.
There you go.
Actually, I have one of those right here.
Oh yeah,
that's funny.
He was a good sport about it.
Yeah, it was.
It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have ran into Lynn, who brings his bike in the trunk of his car.
I've seen pictures. Yes, I don't think he's come to ours, but yeah.
Yeah, and he's been chasing the national enduros, kind of doing all those. But Lynn is kind of like that. He lives. Everybody knows who he is, and he's always known for in the Ford Taurus is what he brings his bike in.
Yeah. It is neat, whenever you put on an event and you start seeing these guys like that show up and you don't forget a face. And that's one of the most rewarding things for me anyways, when you're walking through the campground and you start seeing the guys that have been there all 4 or 5 years that you've done it, and they come up to you and talk about it, man. It's super rewarding.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier about as far as getting noticed or people telling, like that's when it's all done, and those are the moments that make you go back home and like, okay, I'm ready to do it again tomorrow. Like,
that's kind of how we are too. And even like some of the years where it was really frustrating, you're like, we're never doing this again. It was such a big waste of time, and I hate it. And then it's a week and a half later, we're like, so what are we going to do next year? Where are we going? What route are we doing?
Yeah. And the website's the same way. It wasn't 2 months ago. I almost shut it down. Like it was one of those, like, it had malware on it. It was sending people everywhere. It wasn't loading. People were emailing me, texting me. I was like, I cannot fit. And the last update I had was so long ago because, you get lazy about that. Everything goes good. You get lazy about things.
Yeah.
And every year it seems like, and then I get that email that's, I love this. It's like, okay, all right, we'll continue to do it again. So
that's awesome. All right. Well, Mark, if you don't mind, you can hang out here with us while we wrap up our last 2 little segments we have on our show. Feel free to chime in if you see something that interests you here. The first thing we're going to do is our industry news, and we got a few little bullet points here. Unfortunately, rest in peace, Super Hunky. Longtime moto journalist Rick Simon has passed away at the age of 83. Started writing for Dirt Bike Magazine back in 1971, and man, his impact in the industry is definitely going to be missed. I remember growing up and seeing all those articles he would write. I mean, it was like I was a kid in Christmas every time that new issue would come out, and you wanted to.
And luckily with the internet, Dirt Bike Magazine's archived a lot of their back issues, so you can still go back and read all the columns and stuff that he created over the years. Yeah,
and his daughter actually recently on Facebook posted up a deal where she was compiling all those good articles and putting them together in a book. And if you can find her on Facebook, she's available to purchase those books from her. The new 24 Tenere 700 comes with a new TFT dash, 3 new ABS modes. It's a 5-inch dash. It comes with Bluetooth connectivity and access to those ABS settings. So, unfortunately, the most analog bike in the middleweight adventure segment seems to be going digital now.
They're going to put everything on it but a hydraulic clutch.
Yeah. KTM Rally Team is experiencing some setbacks. Their top rider, Matthias, had a horrible crash during testing in U.S. and broke his tib, fib, and ankle. And his teammate Kevin Benitez is also out, more than likely for the Dakar. He's been sat out with an injury. Did miss the Morocco rally as well. So Team KTM not looking too good for the Dakar coming up.
You remember Skylar Howes rode for Husqvarna. And he had a really nasty crash somewhere. He actually broke his scapula in 2 on a rock or something like that. And then shortly thereafter, he announced that he was parting ways with Husqvarna. I think he rides Honda now.
Yeah.
For those events.
I know, I think it's Mason Klein is the guy that's signed on to ride the Cove Chinese 450 bike. He was a factory rider at one time there as well. So.
Curious to see how that pans out.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. I think it's time for everybody's favorite part of the show. Had to lay her down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
Mark probably has no idea what the context of that is at all.
No, I said I've watched a couple of the episodes, but I have no clue where that's coming from.
Well,
So,
I'm ready to hear
first
it.
and foremost, we'd like to apologize.
Yeah. What was it last year? This ridiculous Facebook group started called Hog Crankers Against Grass Clippings, and basically it was making fun of Harley guys that just complain about people blowing grass in the road, and it started a whole new meme culture there with making sure you type in all caps and misspell all your words and yell and stuff. So we use that as a premise for some pretty funny crashes and stuff that we see online. That we like.
That's what everyone blames now, regardless of what terrain you wipe out on. It's always because clippings.
Yep, clippings.
Oh.
All right, so tonight's episode comes from a YouTube channel that you guys definitely need to follow if you're not already. Seaboys TV. These guys, kind of the same vein as Grindhard Plumbing. They're always out building some cool, different, motorcycles, side by sides, 4-wheelers, what have you. And this one here is they had a Yamaha R6 out in Moab. So we'll just kind of let this play. This is really, really, really interesting.
There ain't no way I'd bring one of them in here.
You know how many Instagram videos I've seen of people like making it halfway up this and then rolling down?
It's just this? Or is there more below it?
Just this, I guess.
This one doesn't look bad.
Dude, from the bottom of this, it looks so much more gnarly.
Good luck, brother. Oh no, I blew my brake off.
Still better suspension than a CRF 300L.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine the wheel spin on that thing. Like, it's impressive he got that high, really.
Yeah, if you continue watching that video, like I said, it's pretty long. We won't show it tonight, but it starts raining there, and he tries to go down this one slick rock hill and just completely loses control, rips both of the clip-on handlebars off of it and everything, and then spend like the rest of the night getting this big truck back in there to try to get that bike out of there. But yeah, those guys are nuts.
And the same as that channel is a guy named Matt Spears. He's done classics such as Goldwing Hill Climb.
Yep.
His latest video is Hey Busa with a paddle tire in the sand dunes.
Yeah. Well, they found their niche.
Yep. All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Mark. We appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Hopefully it was a good episode for y'all. And I know we really appreciate everything you do to help promote the sport with your site and all the different events in our area. So we really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. It was fun. So
anytime, buddy. We appreciate you. All right. Well, I think that wraps up tonight, and we'll catch you all next Tuesday. I got an idea for a fun little episode. I think we're going to do a little Facebook Marketplace browsing with some prices. So stay tuned to that. We'll see what we can find that's street legal for 500, 1,000 and up. We'll kind of go that route.
I like the idea of that. I already know who I'm going to single out. So.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. As always, we'll catch you next Tuesday.
Yep. Thanks for your time, everyone.